Hi, I'm Liz from Daisy Chain Patterns, and this is the Dale Sweatshirt expansion series. Today we'll be sewing the quarter zip view, which has a wide collar, quarter zipper front, and side seam pockets. To make the Dale Sweatshirt expansion quarter zip view, you're going to need from the expansion pattern the front bodice for the quarter zip, the side seam pockets, the wide collar, the zipper shield, and the zipper quarter zipper interfacing. From the original Dale pattern, you'll need your back bodice, your sleeve in the length of your choice with corresponding cuff, and your waistband piece. To prep for your side seam pockets, we're going to start with your front bodice and your twill tape. At the pocket notch markings, you're going to make a small snip in 3/8 of an inch into your seam allowance. Then cut a length of twill tape that is about an inch longer than those clips. You're going to lay the twill tape with an 1/8 inch overhang. If you're using a twill tape that's narrower, this is a 1/2 inch twill tape, so we have an 1/8 inch overhang. If you're using a 3/8 inch twill tape, you can just line it up with the edge. You're gonna align it there and tuck it under the snips you made. And pin in place. And then repeat that process with the second side. Now we're going to edge stitch the inside edge of the twill tape on each side. Working from the wrong side of your bodice, you're going to turn the short edges of the twill tape to the wrong side and press. Then, using the twill tape or your stitch line as a guide, you're going to turn that whole piece to the wrong side and press. So this is just one fold flat along that stitch line or the edge of your twill tape. And then we'll pin it in place. We'll repeat that for the second side. If you're having trouble securing these in place, rather than pins, you could glue baste this down or use Wonder Tape. Now we're going to edge stitch the 3 sides of the twill tape that do not have a stitch line yet. We're going to start in one corner, pivot, come all the way down, and pivot again to end at your side seam. And repeat that process on the other side. So now you've created a nice clean opening for your side seam pockets, and we're going to move on to prepping our pocket pieces. You're going to run a basting stitch along the large curve on each pocket piece with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now, using that basting stitch as your guide, you're going to turn that edge to the right side of the fabric. So we're turning this under 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to press. If needed, you can use your basting stitch to help pull this curved edge in. You'll just grab one of your thread tails, give it a gentle tug, remove that slight bit of ease you're getting up into the curve. And this will help the curve turn a little easier. Just be sure if you're pulling from each side that you're grabbing the same thread whether it be the top or the bottom thread. With the wrong side of your sweatshirt front facing up, you're going to place your pockets right side down, aligning the notches with the notches. So we have wrong sides of both fabrics facing up, and the pocket's going to nestle down into the bottom hem and along the side seam here. You will have a slight overhang of your pocket, which is what you want at the pocket opening. This is how you'll get into the pocket later. And you're going to pin this in place all around. Then we'll repeat that with the second pocket. Next, we're going to edge stitch our pocket bags. So along each curve, I'm going to run a line of stitching here, first at the edge, and then we're going to do a second row of stitching at 3/8, and this will fully enclose our seam allowance that we turned under there. I'm going to stitch from the wrong side and just use my pockets as my guide. There is a pocket stitching guide here on your pattern piece that you could transfer to the front if you prefer to stitch from the front of the fabric. And this is the edge of the pocket. You'd then stitch 3/8 in from that. If your fabric was particularly heavy, you could use a walking foot at this point, which would help move it along. And now we'll repeat that process with the second side. Using a basting stitch, you're going to secure the side seams of the pocket and along the bottom hemline. Now your pockets are complete. Now we're going to prep our front bodice for installing our zipper. So from the wrong side of the front bodice, we're going to apply our inner facing, starting at the neckline, going straight down the center front here. You can mark your center front line, or if you still see your fold from cutting, make sure you've transferred your zipper markings as well. Line that up straight on. And then we're going to iron this in place. I'm using a lightweight woven fusible interfacing here. You could use a tricot or a knit interfacing, but really you don't want anything with too much stretch. We want to add stability to where we're installing the zipper. We're going to use our markings as our guide, and we're going to stitch down starting at the neckline, down along the outer edge of the box, pivoting at the bottom and coming straight back up. Using the center line on your marking and these little Y's at the bottom, we're going to cut down right through your center front and along those Y dashes. You want to cut to, but not through your stitch line. So you should have an opening and a little triangle right at the bottom. Now that we've prepped our zipper opening, we're going to sew our shoulder seams. So taking your front bodice and your back bodice, right sides together, you're going to stitch across the shoulder seams using your preferred stretch stitch. Your sweatshirt body is ready for the collar, so we're going to move on to prepping our collar piece. So before I apply my twill tape to my collar, I'm going to add a couple markings or snips just to help me as guidelines later. You should have notches here that indicate where your shoulder seam will line up. This is our center back. You can use a marking pen to mark that, or I'm just going to put a little snip in here to remind myself where that is. And then also here along the fold line, you can use a marking tool to mark here, just to help you have a guide, or I'm just going to create a tiny snip. And that's just the halfway point of the collar. So now on the right side of your fabric, we're going to apply twill tape along one edge. It doesn't matter which side you pick unless your fabric is directional. I'm working with a solid, so it's not. This is going to be the inside edge of the collar that finishes the neckline. So cut a length of twill tape, the length of your collar. You can cut it a little long and always trim it off later if you need. And we're going to align this with an 1/8" overhang. And then we'll be edge stitching this inner edge of the twill tape. Now we're going to edge stitch the inner edge of our twill tape. We're going to pre-press our collar in half. So with wrong sides together, you're going to match up your shoulder notches. And we're just folding this right in half and pressing a nice fold in. Again, that twill tape is going to overhang. We're aligning the edge of the fabric. I'm going to open that up and I'm just going to throw a pin on either end of that fold line. I do have a tiny snip that I put there, but this will just help us in our next step of installing the zipper. Make sure everything is nice and even. To prep our zipper, we're going to install our zipper shield on the bottom of our zipper tape. So for your zipper shield, you can cut it the width of your zipper. It's okay too if it's a little narrower than your zipper. We're just going to be basting it on, and you're really only going to be seeing this bottom edge when your sweatshirt is finished, because we're going to be stitching very close to the zipper teeth. So we're going to fold this 1 inch to the wrong side on one side. And a 1/2 inch to the wrong side on the opposite end. And then we're just going to fold this in half and press. We're going to open that fold up and insert our zipper and close it back down. And using a basting stitch, we're going to stitch just the outer edge here. We don't want these stitches to show, we just want to keep this in place. If you were shortening your zipper from the bottom, this can be a good way to cover that zipper end with however you've secured a new end to your zipper, whether it's sewing over it, applying twill tape, or adding a new zipper stop. And if you need to shorten your zipper from the top, I'll show you that in the next steps. Now we're going to stitch this in place, and this will create a nice soft finish for the inside of your sweatshirt. Now we're going to attach our collar to our bodice. So along the edge that does not have the twill tape, we're going to pin it to the neckline of the bodice. So the center front aligns here. Be matching your shoulder notches to your shoulder seam. Now we're going to stitch our neckline with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now we're going to press the seam allowance along the neckline up towards the collar. And give it a press from both sides just to make sure everything's nice and flat. Before installing your zipper, you just want to add a couple markings to make sure that we are installing it evenly on each side of our opening. So you're going to place your zipper tape face down along the bodice front, along your opening here. And you want to either align your stops at the top with the fold that we've marked here, or you can align your zipper stop at the bottom with the opening we have. It's okay if your stop goes a little bit past, because our zipper shield gives us a little leeway here, so it's not just going to show the bottom of the empty zipper tape. If your zipper was too long, you can shorten it in a couple different ways. As I said, you could shorten it from the bottom, secure that, and then cover it with your zipper stop. You could also fold your zipper tape just up and out of the way. If you're using a nylon coil zipper, you can easily sew over this without breaking your needle. If your zipper was metal or something a little heavier like a molded plastic, you'll want to remove those teeth before you shorten the zipper, because your needle will break if you sew over them. You can always add new stops at the top. You can take these off with pliers and reapply them, or they sell new stops. You could just stitch over the edge, or again, if you're just folding it out of the way, then once it's secured down, you can just snip off this excess. So we're going to lay this right along our center front edge. And my zipper is just the right length, so I don't need to shorten anything here, but I am going to mark my neckline here on the back of my zipper tape. And then I'm just going to use my ruler and extend that marking all the way across so that I know I'm installing this evenly on each side. Now we're gonna pin this in place. Again, our zipper is face down, so our bodice and our zipper are right sides together. I'm just gonna pin all the way along this edge. We'll be sewing one side of the zipper at a time, so you don't really need to worry about what's going on over here. Now I'm going to put a zipper foot on my machine, and we're going to stitch down here using our zipper as our guide for how close to stitch. So we don't want to stitch through our zipper teeth, but we want to be very close so that we're butting up right next to the zipper. So I've attached my zipper foot, and I'm going to place my zipper in here just to get a sense of where I need to position my needle. So I'm not going to sew yet. I'm just placing this randomly. So again, the side of our zipper foot is going to snuggle up against the zipper teeth. And then we want to move our needle so that it's stitching right next to it. Okay, now that I have things positioned, I'm going to start up at the top. It can be helpful when your zipper pull is bulky to unzip it just a bit to get that out of your way. We'll then pause while we're stitching to put it back in place and get it out of our way again. So we're going to start up at the top of the zipper. It's fine if you're stitching this top of the zipper tape in the other end of your collar. That won't be noticeable. We can trim that away later. Stitch all the way down. So I've inserted my needle. I'm going to lift up my presser foot so I can get my zipper pull back up there out of the way again. And we're going to stitch all the way down to about where that box marking is. And secure it with a back stitch. Then, before moving on to the other side, always good to check that your zipper is installed how you like it. Make sure it unzips, zips back up. If you didn't get as close to your teeth as you wanted, you could run another line of stitching down there. You wouldn't be able to see it from the finished side, so just get it exactly how you like. Now we're gonna sew the second side of our zipper. It can be helpful to unzip your zipper. And we're gonna turn this so it's right sides together, using the marking we have for our neckline. And depending on your fabric thickness, you may want to pull your zipper tab through, making sure that little triangle is sticking out. Zip that back up just to make sure everything's looking good. And again, we'll be moving our pull in and out of place to keep it out of our way. So I'm going to open it for now. Since this is the other side of the zipper, we're going to need to align on the other side of the zipper foot. So again, I'm putting my presser foot down just so I can get my needle in the right position. Just test it here. That looks good. Now I'm going to start my stitch line up at the top. going to stitch down to right at the bottom of that box opening. It can be a little harder to see that opening from this side, so you can use your previous stitch as a guide, or just peek under your zipper tab. And again, from the right side, you just want to check that your zipper is fully functioning. Looks good. Our necklines are nice and even. Zipper tape looks nice and even on each side. Again, if you weren't happy with how this looks, you could run another line of stitching here. Now we're going to just close up the bottom, moving this little triangle. So from the wrong side of your bodice front, you're going to peek under your zipper shield. And you want to pull or poke the little triangle that's left at the bottom so that it's on the wrong side of your sweatshirt. We're going to kind of pinch together that triangle and our zipper shield. And we're going to stitch right across here. You're not catching the bodice front, you're just going through, well, this is part of the bodice front, but we're just stitching through that bottom line on the triangle and attaching it to our zipper shield. So I'm going to pin this in place. This piece is pretty tiny, a little finicky. So again, here you could glue baste or use a little Wonder Tape if you have trouble keeping it where you want it to go. Okay, and now we're going to stitch. You can use that box as your guide, or you can be just underneath it. You just don't want to catch the fold up here. You want to be just on the triangle. Right. And I'm going to leave my zipper foot on for this step since it has a nice flat wall on the side. It's actually a little helpful. You can also use your regular foot too, that's no problem. So I'm going to put my presser foot down and again, just get my needle in the right position. Okay, that looks good. Should have a nice clean finish here on your zipper. If you're getting any puckering, you can always take that stitch out and do it again. And just give that a nice little press. Now to finish off our neckline, we're going to unzip our zipper, keep that pull out of our way. And we're just going to, using the fold we created earlier on the collar, we're going to refold the neckline and match up our notches. To finish off our collar, we're going to finish the center front ends. So folding with right sides together. Again, using your marked fold line as the point to fold at. We're going to fold back down over the zipper and pin the collar in place. The seam allowance of our neckline should be facing up into the collar, and our twill tape is going to come down and overhang just past that. And repeat that on the other side. Now we're going to stitch that in place, again using our zipper foot as a guide. So again, we're going to place the side of our zipper foot up against the zipper tape here. You'll just have to feel for that little lump. I'm going to stitch all the way up into the fold. Repeat that on the other side. Okay, now we're going to turn this right side out. Poke out your corners if you need to. And again, always good to double check your zipper. everything's still working right. We're going to finish off the neckline. So we're going to align our shoulder notches and our center back seams together, replacing the twill tape so that it goes over our stitch line. Using the fold line that we created in the collar previously as our guide. And you can just snip your little triangle notches off here so that they're not sticking out of your twill tape once you have them in position. And we're just going to secure this in place with pins. Again, this step is a little finicky, so Wonder Tape can be a great use at this point, or glue basting. I'll throw some Wonder Tape in just to show you how to use it. So it's just a double-sided tape. It's water soluble, so it'll go away later once you wash your sweatshirt. It's not going to gum up your needles or add any bulk. We're going to edge stitch this bottom edge of twill tape that does not yet have a stitch line. All along here, you'll start at one side, end at the other, and that will close up your neckline. So I've attached an edge stitching foot to my machine. Not necessary, but can be helpful. You can use your regular foot or even your zipper foot at this point. And we're going to edge stitch our seam allowance down using our previous neckline stitch as the guide. Just double check your zipper is still functioning. You've created your collar for your sweatshirt. Now to finish this off, we'll refer back to the original Dale pattern. We're going to attach the sleeves, finish up the side seams, and add our cuffs and hemband. When we're doing our side seams here, on the side seam pockets, you want to make sure you're not catching your pocket opening. So if you'd like, you could pin this little bit out of your way just to be sure, or just take extra care as you're sewing that this isn't getting caught. So now we're going to attach our sleeves. You're going to align your notches together, and right sides together on your fabric. So our shoulder notch aligns with the shoulder seam, front notch, and back notches. And you're going to sew this with your preferred stretch stitch. I'm going to be using a serger today, but you use the stitch that you like. Sew our side seam, and on this quarter zip view, remember we don't want to sew over our pocket opening, so you can either pin that out of your way or just be mindful of it as you're sewing. We're going to fold our sleeve in half, right sides together, aligning our underarm seam and aligning the front and back at the hem. I like to nest my seam allowances at the underarm just to distribute the bulk a little better, but you can totally put them going in the same direction as well. So we've caught our front and back seam allowance without catching the pocket opening. You have a nice entry to your pocket here. If you'd like, you can also add bar tacks along these seams here just to reinforce that stitch opening. Now we'll repeat that step with our opposite sleeve. So now we have the body of our sweatshirt assembled, and we just need to attach our cuffs and our hemband, and those are applied in the same way. We're going to start by prepping our cuffs and hemband pieces. You should have 2 cuffs, which you will fold in half, right sides together. I'm going to stitch along this short edge here to create a loop. We'll repeat that on the second. And for your waistband or hemband, you should have 2 pieces. And we're going to lay those out right sides together. And we're going to stitch on either short end, again, to create a loop. We're going to turn our hemband and our cuff right sides out. So we're using our seams that we just made, stack those up. We're going to fold this in half with the right side facing out. And we're going to press it. When we attach our hemband and our cuffs, or even our neckband on the original Dale, these pieces are smaller than the piece they're getting attached to. And so we want to distribute the stretch of this fabric evenly. So to do that, we're going to quarter both our hemband and the seam that it's getting attached to. So on your hemband, you can use these side seams as a halfway point. We're going to stack those on top of each other to find the quarter points. I'm just going to throw a pin into each. Then we want to quarter this as well. So again, our side seams are our halfway point, and then our center front and our center back are our quarter points there. So if you didn't have those marked at the hem, you can just, again, stack your side seams. You'll throw a pin in there. We're going to repeat that process with our cuffs. So we're turning these right side out and folded in half, stacking the seam. And this piece you can quarter as well, or since it's so small, finding just the halfway point is usually enough for me. So I'm just going to do a half here, but if you did want to quarter it, you would then just stack where that pin is and add 2 more markings here to find the quarter points. You'll then repeat that process with your sleeve, using the seam to find the halfway point. And then again, if you'd like to quarter it, stacking again to mark those second quadrants. Okay, now when we attach it, we're going to pin at just these quarter markings, and then we're going to stretch the ribbing as we sew. So we're going to align our side seams to our side seams. It's just going to go all the way around the body of your sweatshirt. And the cuffs will be sewn in the same way, matching those points. And we'll be sewing in the round. I'm going to start at my center back. You could also start at your side seam. Either would be fine. And I'm going to insert this in. And again, we're just focusing on this quarter here. And we're going to stretch our rib knit as we sew so that it stretches to fit the bodice underneath. Then you're going to press that seam allowance up towards the body of the sweatshirt. And optionally, if you like, you can run top stitching along that seam line using a twin needle, a cover stitch, or your preferred stretch stitch.